Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here with me. I already see people complaining about packet loss. So what I am trying to see is where this packet loss is. Can folks hear me? Are we out of sync? What are we doing? Again, remember, this is a new location, so I have to figure out all the different avenues with the network here, etc., etc., etc. So give me a lowdown as far as what you're seeing, how connected we are. Okay, folks, please remember, if you're just joining us, give that thumbs up to our show. Please give that thumbs up both on Facebook and on YouTube, so that we can get all of this stuff going. Out of sync. How bad out of sync is it today? Give me a timing if you get a chance to tell my voice versus the activity. I am not exactly sure why the out of sync is here, but I'm looking and trying to figure this out as we speak. Again, this I hope to get all these kinks worked out of here sometime soon. Anyhow, about 20 seconds or so. Oh, that's terrible if it's 20 seconds or so. I'm looking at drop packets, and it does seem to be that we are having a considerable amount of drop packets, and I don't understand why we would have those drop packets. I have two choices. I don't want to, let me do, while we're talking here, let me do a quick test here. I did the test before we started, but what I want to do, folks, is do a speed test, because this is a very, very fast network, and we haven't had any problems. Yeah, the network's download is to die for. Anyhow, we have a great show for you today. A wonderful show for you today. We're going to talk about, yeah, both of the speeds are great. I'm not sure where the packet losses are coming from, but we will figure that out in due time. Okay, let's forget about all of that for the time being, and let's talk about what the show is going to be. The show today, titled Schumer slams GOP on debt ceiling as Manchin continues his DINO, BIPOC, art and culture grants. Okay, great. Courtney says just slightly out of sync on my end. Anyhow, let's go ahead and start saluting you guys. First of all, I want to say welcome aboard, Courtney, the SLP. Welcome aboard, E2247. Welcome aboard, E2247, Bridge MCP. Welcome aboard, AVQ. Thank you so kindly for being here. Deb Denny, Bridge MCP. Tom C, out of sync, but audio is good. And we have, let's see what else we got here. Okay. If I skipped any one of you, call me out. Anyhow, from Michael Rudnin, six aspects of American life threatened by climate change. 24 federal agencies flag the biggest danger posed by a warming planet. The list spreads across American society. Our government already knows what's coming, but they aren't doing nearly enough to prevent the worst outcomes. Just one highlight from the article: the Department of Agriculture lists the ways climate change threatens Americans' food supply. Changes in temperature and precipitation patterns, more pests and disease, reduced soil quality, fewer pollinating insects, and more storms and wildfires will combine to reduce crops and livestock. But that is not the only thing, guys. I mean, and you know, it's scary. Rudden, I'm glad that you keep on keeping on this particular aspect. It is a national security issue. The biggest problem we have here is that now the possibility of, you know, we think migration is bad now. Think about the migration coming from the north. I mean, coming south up north, all these places from the equator is spreading out. That is what we're looking at. But worse, we're actually looking at this being not only an ecological disaster, but one that can affect land masses throughout. There's some more I'd like to talk about it, but I'll get it. Bri says, Leta da waiting for me peeps. I like that. Leta da waiting for my peeps. I like that. All right, Redden also says, no time to waste. Climate leaders call for passing reconciliation bill before UN summit. Last chance to save the civilization is slipping by as corporations seek more short-term profit at everyone else's expense. And that is the magic. Our economic system that they like to tell you, free enterprise, not free enterprise, I believe in free enterprise. When they tell you the market will solve the problems, the market has no soul, the market has no feelings, the market just makes money for today. Building new renewables is cheaper than burning fossil fuels. Yes, it is. If you need selfish reasons to promote green energy, fossil fuel air pollution kills 10 million people per year, and also green energy is now cheaper than fossil fuels. If not for the government policy to subsidize fossil fuels, this shift would have already occurred. I don't know, for those of you who are young, back in 1976, 77, 78, President Carter created a program called SynFuel, I believe is what it was. And the idea was to turn other things into fuels that we could use, synthetic fuels. And it went big in Brazil. Brazil, for the most part, is energy efficient with its alcohol-based fuel burning. You know, again, that's renewable. Why? You grow the plant, you turn the plant, you take the carbon out of the plant, and that cycle continues. Now, here's the deal. We decided when Reagan came into office, he got rid of SynFuel, he got rid of the solar panels on the top of the White House that was placed there by Carter. And again, that was in 1977. How many decades ago that was? And that's what actually happened. So anyhow, continue. Here's what happened when men in tech share their salaries. What happens when salary transparency is no longer taboo? Those on the low end get raises, especially if they are women or minorities. The ones definitely a recommended read for after the show. What is that article? Or if you prefer the visual format, Adam Ruins Everything had a great segment about this half a decade ago. Hey, thanks for that. I'll go ahead and look that into it. Bree says sound off and on YouTube and buffering. Okay. Tell me how we're doing right now with the sound, etc. Seems he reloaded, working great. I'd love to hear that. AVQ says without watch clock on the screen, hard to tell exactly how long the sync is. You're right, Mike. You're correct. Only slight out of sync according to SLP. Carl Cox, welcome aboard. Let's see who else we have here. Support HR 7781, End Polluter Welfare Act of 2020, agreed. Continue, and I keep pushing global warming and environmental news on the daily because it is existential threat and our civilization is not taking it seriously. And that's why every single time you talk about it, Brother Rudnin, you know you have a place here where we will put it out. Peggy Lopez, welcome aboard. Let's see what else we got here. Eric Hayes, welcome aboard. Paul Fleming, ATL, checking in. During the campaign, President Biden called for a ban on new oil and gas leases on federal land, and he did it through executive action within weeks of taking office. Carl Cox, free enterprise is crony capitalism, works for the mega rich and the mega corporations to bleep with the rest of America. Audio is good. Sync is only a few seconds off, I think. Great. I'm glad to hear that it's not all that bad. I hope it eventually catches up. We'll see. Who here agrees with the current administration using the DOJ to go after parent and school meeting, try and quiet people? Audio is slower than video, but yeah, 4 seconds or so. It is interesting, Hayes, like I keep telling you, get off the right-wing media. If you take a look at what's going on at school boards, you see right-wingers threatening people that want masks and saying, we will find you. There is an inordinate amount of stuff out there showing the violence many of these crazy parents that don't want to protect innocent kids from being ill, what they're doing. So that is a fact, Jack. Anyhow, before I go into the interview that I had today about, I want to play a piece. I was happy with the way Biden handled the employment report. The employment report is good. 194,000 people got employed. Again, it didn't meet that expectation. In other words, somebody said it's going to be 500,000 people. So we got 194, and it's the end of the world. I remember the days when 100,000 employed would have been great, especially at an unemployment rate of 4.8%. But anyhow, what Biden did, I think, is he made sure to put the positive spin on the unemployment report. I repeat, Biden did the right thing by putting the appropriate spin on the employment report. And I'm going to just play a section of that I want you guys to take a look at, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Today, for the first time since March of 2020, the American unemployment rate is below 5%. In just 8 months since I became president, in the midst of a grave public health and economic crisis, the unemployment rate is now down below 5% at 4.8%. Let me just repeat that. Today's report has the unemployment rate down to 4.8%, a significant improvement from when I took office and a sign that our recovery is moving forward, even in the face of a COVID pandemic. That improvement was widespread. Unemployment for Hispanic workers was down, and the unemployment rate for African Americans fell almost a full percent, and it's now below 8% for the first time in 17 months. A drop of 496,000 in long-term unemployment is the second largest single-month drop since we started keeping records. The largest was in July. So in the past 3 months, we've seen a drop of 1.3 million long-term unemployed. That's the largest 3 months fall in long-term unemployment since we started keeping records in 1948. More to do, but great progress. And working Americans are seeing their paychecks go up as well. In September, we saw one of the largest increases in average wages paid to workers, working Americans on record. Today's report comes one day after the Labor Department found, in the third quarter of this year, the number of layoffs and job reductions was the lowest in this country since 1997. Overall, the unemployment report shows almost 200,000 jobs were created last month, over 300,000 in the private sector and 26,000 in manufacturing, offset by some seasonal adjustments in education hiring. The monthly totals bounce around, but if you take a look at the trend, it's solid. On average, 600,000 new jobs created every month since I took office. And in 3 months before I got there, that was 1/10 what was being created. It's 60 to 60,000 as opposed to 600,000 jobs a month. In total, the job creation in the first 8 months of my administration is nearly 5 million jobs. Jobs up, wages up, unemployment down. That's progress. And it's a tribute to the hard work and resilience of the American people who are battling through this pandemic, working to keep their businesses afloat. Remember, today's report is based on a survey that was taken during the week of September the 13th. Not today, September the 13th, when COVID cases were averaging more than 150,000 per day. Since then, we've seen the daily cases fall by more than 1/3, and they're continuing to trend down. We're continuing to make progress. Right now, things in Washington, as you all know, are awfully noisy. Turn on the news, and every conversation is a confrontation. Every disagreement is a crisis. But when you take a step back and look at what's happening, we're actually making real progress.
We're actually making real progress, and that is the truth. We are actually making real progress. And what is great as well is he points out, I think it was later on in the interview, he points out that the Build Back Better is essential because there are a lot of people who can't get jobs because they cannot afford childcare. So you want to get more people working, you want to get more people employed, then go ahead and pass these bills that allow that to happen. Look, yesterday there was an issue with Manchin. You know, Manchin continues his feat to somehow reduce Build Back Better. He doesn't want a state, a country that takes care of its own. He doesn't want a country that understands that unless everybody is doing fine, we have a problem. Folks, if you're just joining us, please go ahead and do a thumbs up on YouTube or a thumbs up on Facebook, wherever you're looking at it. Please, we really could use those for the sake of distribution of the of our system here, not our system, of our video here. But anyhow, I want you to listen to what Bernie Sanders had to say because I think it's prescient. Bernie is not going to take it silently anymore. We have Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia. He has likely the first or second poorest state in the country. People that are dependent on, because of bad state management, not bringing industry, not educating their people, not doing all the things that are necessary to have a vibrant citizenry. They need the support from the Biden to make a better economy. They need that, and he's one of the objectors. Well, he's not saying what he wants to take out of the bill, but Bernie's been nice. Bernie's been trying, and he finally has had it. I want you to take a look at this, and then let's take it on the other side.
Thanks very much on a busy day for being here. I just want to say a few words about some of what's going on. And as chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, I want to say a few words about the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill that a number of us are fighting for. And I'd also like to make some brief comments about what Senator Manchin said earlier today. Senator Manchin, as I understand it, talked about today about not wanting to see our country become an entitlement society. Well, I am not exactly sure what he means by that. Senator Manchin has been extremely critical of the $3.5 trillion proposal that many of us support. In fact, 9 out of 11 members of the Budget Committee support. But the time is long overdue for him to tell us with specificity, not generalities, we're beyond generalities, with specificity, what he wants and what he does not want, and to explain that to the people of West Virginia and America. Look, it's very easy to use vague phraseology. My concern with Mr. Manchin is not so much what his views are. I disagree with him. But it is that it is wrong. It is really not playing fair that one or two people think that they should be able to stop what 48 members of the Democratic caucus want, what the American people want, what the President of the United States wants. That would be my position. So Senator Manchin has a right to fight for his point of view. He has not only a right to be heard, he has a right to get some compromises. He's a member of the Senate. But two people do not have the right to sabotage what 48 want and what the President of the United States wants. That, to me, is wrong. We need some specificity here. It's not good enough to be vague. You want to cut child care? How much do you want to cut child care? You want to cut climate? Cut climate. How much do you want to do that? Tell us with some specificity what you want.
No doubt about it. Bernie got upset, and just about every one of those senators who support the Build Back Better bill, they understand the frustration, both from Sinema and from Manchin. But Manchin is the one who goes out and said, I don't want to create an entitled state. Well, you already live in an entitled state because your people are living off of the government already. But these programs that we have in the Build Back Better programs, these are things that are not going to keep you there, but gives you the type of financial assistance so that you can move ahead. It's not all that difficult to understand. What is difficult is realizing that some of your benefactors are going to have to pay for it because they have extracted so much out of America. They have extracted so much out of the middle class. They have extracted so much out of the poor. Look, their wealth isn't theirs. Their wealth is money's not paid you. Their wealth is the waste that they've dumped into the streams of West Virginia, filling them up with mercury, lead, and all these other heavy metals, etc. That's their legacy. Their legacy is theft, pilfer, and extraction. And it is time to get it back. And Build Back Better is just a tiny fraction of what should be recovered. A tiny fraction of what should be recovered. Anyhow, it is time now for us to go to our interview, and we'll take it on the other side. And while I'm doing the interview, I'll go ahead and review the chat, see what you guys are telling me. Again, sometimes I have to turn sideways, all that kind of stuff with this new setup, but hey, we're going to get it done. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. Today we have a very special guest. He has a whole lot to talk about. Sixto Wagan is the project director for the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund. He leads BANF along with a 7-member board steering committee and a 9-member accountability and advisory council made up of a diverse group of artists, curators, scholars, organizational leaders, and foundation partners who who guide goals and priorities. Very important work. It's my pleasure to have you on Politics Done Right, Mr. Wagan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being part of this and having this conversation with us.
Well, I think this is important because it is, we talk about the arts, we talk about all these types of issues, and seldom do we see some of the works of the others, if you understand what I mean. So why don't you tell me a little bit about BANF?
So it is a multi-year initiative that was founded as part of the Ford Foundation's America's Cultural Treasures Initiative, and which really looked at understanding in the moment of COVID-19 and the social reckoning resurgence that there is needs in order to address the historical inequities in terms of funding and funding crisis for our communities of color. And that not only was this a national initiative, but Ford Foundation invited regional foundations to join in and to help work on the work and the ideas that we have been talking over many years around equity and funding. And Houston Endowment stepped up and actually invited a number of other local foundations, including Kinder, Powell Foundation, the Brown Foundation, and the Cullen Foundation, in order to join us to really explore what it would look like in order to have an opportunity to address this historical exclusion and create a collective approach that brings community leaders into the same room and to actually understand how to create work and support artists and communities of color and help the communities of color actually decide how that money should be spent.
I'm going to ask you sort of a silly question, but I think for a greater audience, it's a very important question. We have artists all over the country, all over Houston, all over major cities as well. We take a look on TV and we see several artists that would fit the BIPOC qualifications, but generally those are the mega stars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Many would then ask, is there really some difference between what BIPOC artists versus the majority experience? Because again, perception is a lot different than reality.
Well, I think that this is also like you bring up multiple really important points on multiple levels, and I think that when we look on the national, international level, we can actually identify some superstars and some significant people, but the amount of energy and effort that it took them in order to become the superstars, in order for them to recognize the communities of support that it took for them to actually achieve that, that's actually part of what we need to address. Because we have, let's just take Houston's Beyonce. I'm like, great, but Beyonce wouldn't be Beyonce if she didn't have the relationship in the churches that actually helped her understand music and understand what it meant to be part of what it meant to be a Black musician. And in that aspect, then building other communities around that and other communities of support. So I think that what we also are looking at is it's not just about being a superstar, but how do you actually be an amazing artist within this community? How do you actually do the work that's not just about the music, that's not about a commercial aspect, but actually just explores and helps you understand how to be you? Let me just make this a little bit personal in terms of the fact that I grew up as a child of immigrants in St. Louis, Missouri, and my parents, with the Valorias and other families, actually created the Filipino American Society, in which I spent much of my adolescent years learning Filipino folk dance. And that is not ever going to be a commercial success, but it was a really important grounding for me about what it meant to be Filipino American in a community where the majority of the people around me were white. And I think that this is the type of work that we're interested in, is not just the platinum level success or the international success, but really how do our communities of color come together in order to celebrate being us and to celebrate being us, and how do new generations recognize that what does it mean to be Black, Latina, like Afro-Latina, and all of these things simultaneously, and utilizing our culture, our music, our visual arts, our dance, our song, as a way in order to explore, celebrate, and and challenge that.
You know what I love about that, Mr. Wagan, is interesting because the multiculturalism that occurs in America within the, let's even say, the arts community, and watching folks enjoying it all and having a different groups having different levels of success because of underlying socioeconomic conditions within a country means exactly or points exactly, in my opinion, to the needs of a network like yours. In other words, you pointed out Houston. Houston has a lot of bars. Houston has a lot of these other industries that everybody partakes of. But if you go to most bars, the underrepresentation of the artists would be prevalent. How then does that become equal, not equalized, but I don't meritarized equally?
Well, I think that, you know, there's, I think that's actually one of the questions that we have, and that's a part of what we're doing in terms of learning and exploration. And I think that one of the things in which we are developing this network, not to identify what we believe is going to be the ultimate aspects of success.
Right.
I think that where we need to shift is that what do our communities and what do our artists, what do our arts organizations, where are they, what do they think is successful for them, and what is important for them? Because I think that there's a lot of work that's happening, particularly when we look at arts education, when we look at the murals and interaction. It is the value of the one-on-one, the value of the small communities is as significant to many of our artists as it is to be putting into the larger bands or the bars and those spaces. And in fact, some of these spaces in which being able to celebrate that within the communities that, you know, and within the parks, within the green spaces, within all the places in which we actually live, is perhaps more important than putting it into places in which we have people who don't understand, who are unfamiliar with this and unfamiliar with the histories and unfamiliar with the traditions. So how do we build both of these things? How do we make sure that the artists that we and the arts organizations that we're supporting actually help to determine what is important to them, and make sure that we actually have, you know, that it's not just about like how do we make sure that they have the capacities to do what they want to make happen, and that we get to celebrate our communities right now.
I mean, that is important, you know. You know, you're in a political show, and you're going to be on KPFT and Pacifica Network and all these things here. But ultimately speaking, we have this term that we use, that we say all politics is local. All artistry starts locally. You become a star. You gave an example of Beyonce. She had her genesis in the church. She had a genesis within the Black community. Then she built layers around that. But she's one of the rare ones, and it may seem not so, but she's one of the rare ones that was able to grow that onion, the different layers upon her success. And there's another important thing that I think I want everybody to hear out of what you said, because when folks are talking many a times about supporting or having not cutouts, but acknowledging BIPOC, many have a tendency to think what we're looking for is unearned equality, which what you're asking for is equal access to success, not equal success. You want to expand a bit on that?
All the time. Exactly. And I think that this is like what this one is actually to address the fact that for generations, our arts organizations of color have not had the same access to philanthropy, have not had the same access to funding, or even just to capital. And actually, we've had generations that have had to face the fact that our art was never even thought about as art. That's nice for what you do, but that's not actually art, because art in so many generations has been defined by this white Western male gaze, that only the things that were fit into the Museum of Fine Arts or fit into the Whitney became what was actually significant art. And really what we have been pushing and recognizing is that we need to shift what those opportunities are, so that there are that the people who actually need to generate what's important to our communities of color and to our artists of color should actually be experts within our artists in our own communities, and it doesn't necessarily need to have a Western academic lens in order to say that this is actually what art is, this is what is good is. I mean, let's just say like we've seen how the idea of excellence, the term of excellence has actually been weaponized against our communities of color. We've actually seen that because that it's only thought of as local, because it's only thought of as a Black idiom, or or a Latina idiom, that is never, it's not really excellent. It's not really worth the resources, because mariachi is good for mariachi, for those communities, but that's actually not, that's not real music. And like, how many times have we heard that? How many times have we actually experienced the fact that our experiences, our histories, our like in our music has been belittled because it's not white Western enough? And I think that what we are trying to also say is that by shifting the dynamics with philanthropy, by actually adding our community leaders into the same space, we're actually challenging each other in order to understand, how do we really support the work in the way that it needs to be supported? What does that look like? How do we learn from each other in order to do better? And and it's going to take a long time. We're recognizing that it's amazing that we have $12.4 million for this 5-year initiative, but
we're going to talk about that 12.5 million, but I just love so much of what you said there that I want to expand on it.
Sure.
Beethoven, okay, and other types of music. So what's interesting is where the powers that controlled artistry would like to packetize it, as you'd said before, meaning Beethoven, nice, important music, calculated, it has the right cadence, the right thing. Mariachi, reggae, and all these other things. Yeah, that's cool. What has been an equalizer is how we've had BIPOC folks take a violin, play Beethoven, put their spin on it, and make something more amenable to society as it is today. What is great is watching how other forms of westernized artistry has adopted the artistry of BIPOC, incorporated it, and it then becomes okay. What is amazing is that outside of the powers, people themselves are putting all these artistries together. Now what's really needed, as you have been speaking about, is that financial backing. Your thoughts on that, and then let's go into what you are offering.
Well, I think that there's what we actually continue to think about is like this general arts ecosystem in which all of these things need to be supported, and the ways in which that we have our artists of color actually reinterpreting, rethinking, like remixing so many of these Western, like, what we've learned as Western excellent, kind of masters in that aspect, and utilizing, and you look at Kehinde Wiley, you look at like David McGee, who utilized the ideas of the painting masters and actually put Black faces, Black bodies into those spaces, and twisting in that, and that's amazing. But then we also have other artists who are deeply just recognizing that these are the forms. This is the way that we just need to exist. And how do we actually rekindle the relationships to, our indigenous roots, and how do we actually celebrate that as a moment, and without necessarily having to think about the lens of what history has told us as excellent. So how do we actually have a combination and a community in which all of these are coming together and actually saying that this is not better than this?
In other words, they can stand alone.
Absolutely. And that they should, and let's actually have the conversations as to, why is this really, like, why is this radically important? Why is this really important? Why does this deserve the same level of engagement and the same level of excitement and resources? But then also, like, can we actually start learning from each other in ways? And it's like, where does a conversation happen? Where do we actually break down these ideas of, I only do my thing, you can do your thing over there? And we're actually kind of interested in also, you're doing something great. How do we celebrate that? How do we all celebrate these things to recognize that we're actually part of this larger community and this larger ecosystem within Houston and beyond?
You know, Sixto, that is endemic with, or that is actually within us. Don't you like going to an Italian restaurant or a Jamaican restaurant or a Portuguese restaurant, and you're not asking the Portuguese restaurant not to cook Portuguese food? You like the difference. There is beauty in differences. Beauty
Absolutely.
in differences. Now, tell us a little bit about the fund, this fund that you're working with. And I think there's a deadline that you have in October to give away a lot of money to some independents. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So this fund is actually the first round of funding in a multi-year initiative. And, as I said, currently it is $12.4 million over 5 years that has been invested for Foundation and Houston Endowment, Kinder, Powell, Cullen, and Brown foundations. Plus, hopefully, so it's 12.4 million plus. This first round of funding is $2 million that's going to go out into our BIPOC communities that are supporting arts organizations and artist collectives that using a fiscal sponsor. And the deadline for the application is October 22nd. So it's a really quick turnaround, but it's a pretty easy application in terms of really understanding what are you doing and who are you doing and what are your goals for being like for 2022, and then how do these grants, which are going to range from $5,000 to $50,000, how could they actually help you live into your goals and live into your vision of what success might be? And this is an opportunity for our Latino, our Black, our Indigenous, our Asian, our Middle Eastern, all of our communities of color in Houston actually to utilize this application as an opportunity for recognition, for celebration. And we've even done a few things to help make the granting process a little bit easier in terms of some of the access is relatively easy, but we also have in language, like in Spanish, application guidelines and worksheets in order to make that happen. And if there are other language translations that we need, please just identify for us, and then we'll be working with the Alliance Language of Network of Houston in order to help support that translation.
Now, Mr. Wagan, tell me again who this grant applies to.
So it is for the 9 county regions of Houston, so that is Austin, Brazoria, Chambers, Fort Bend, Galveston, Harris, Liberty, Montgomery, and Waller. And then it is for nonprofit organizations that have a significant arts and culture component and programming, as well as artist collectives or arts organizations that don't have a nonprofit status, but they can actually go through a fiscal agent in order to be able to apply.
Excellent. I always ask this as my last question. It's a tough one. What did I not ask you that you would have liked me to ask you?
There's so much to talk about this initiative and this work. And I think that what I'm most excited about right now is how the work that we are doing in terms of learning who's doing this, who has been doing this throughout the 9 county region, that is an opportunity for us to celebrate their work, but it's also an opportunity for us to learn from them, learn from what are they thinking, what are they doing, particularly in terms of the pandemic and how they have to respond, and how we as a collective philanthropic community leaders, artist leaders, actually can learn from them and learn with them in order to recognize where our resources can be better utilized in the future, and how we can actually advocate for our communities in the future, and not just recognize that it's not just going to be about money, but it's about our long-term networks.
Mr. Wagan, where can everybody who qualifies fill out that application? Where do they go to fill that application out?
They should go to houstonbanf.org as our website, and all of the information in terms of our guidelines, our application process, and the online application are all there. We've done a few information sessions that are on our YouTube page. All of that is accessible through our website, houstonbanf.org.
Sixto Wagan, Project Director for BIPOC Arts Network and fun. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thanks for the conversation.
All right, folks, I'm sorry for the drop packet. I don't know how the hard version is going to come out. We'll see how we can do any kind of adjustment. Secondly, folks, let me go ahead and tell you, first of all, I want to address some of the folks who called my friend Sixto here racist. I don't think so. I don't think he was trying to demean Western art, Beethoven, or anything. In fact, I brought up Beethoven to prove a point. The Fifth of Beethoven was a song that another group in, I think, Philadelphia made into their own flavor, and it just showed you the commonality about music. But what the issue is that no music or no form of art form is superior to another. While what he was trying to point out is we have not looked at it in those forms here in America, and what his attempt and his groups are trying to do is give that every single culture's art forms have merit to that culture and others, and just not to have any particular one monopolize on the other. And I think I had a few people talk about, I saw people talk about if you start talking about equality or start talking about not giving people taking advantage of others or whatever. No, nobody here at Politics Done Right has ever said we are looking for absolute equality. Absolute equality is generally not a possibility. As an example, if I don't want to work a lot and Daniel Ledo want to work hard, there's no way that Daniel Ledo and I should have the same compensation from an economic point of view. But what Daniel and I should have equally is equal access to success. In other words, the building blocks that allows me to get as far as I want to be must be no less than the building blocks that allows Daniel Ledo to move forward. It's that simple. Equal access to success. That makes human beings, that allows human beings to maximize on their entire potential and desires. It's not asking for handouts, but it is saying that one of the good things about society is society can mitigate that which causes people to not have equal access to success. If you are born of a poor parent, as opposed to somebody born of a rich parent, because of that thing that you had no control over, should you forever be endowed with poverty? No. And that's where society mitigates those imbalances, and that's what we're talking about. I want to, before I continue reading all those great messaging that you have out there, I want to first tell everybody a humongous thank you for having our studio, the studio it's already purchased. It'll be coming, and as soon as I get the studio, I'm going to put it in that little corner of this small apartment where we're going to set up, and I'll send you a picture of what all of you that are watching me, that were contributors to politicsdoneright.com/GoFundMe, all of you, including those also that have contributed in other ways, it's your studio. And that's why I will be aiming to bring you the best type of programming I can, and I will continue to do so. But I want to give you the most heartfelt thank you for allowing this remote Politics Done Right to go forward. I promise you better quality when I get everything, all the kinks out and set up appropriately. You guys are winners. Anything that goes over the price of what we're paying, I'll be using for parking and all that good stuff, because I drive to see my daughter every single day at the rehab center, and it becomes expensive at $8 a day. So I mean, what you guys are doing have been immeasurable. And the one thank you that I give is to say, I've gotten from people I don't know, I've gotten from people I know, I've gotten from family, friends, acquaintances. I told Ashley that she is blessed because I can do this here with her. I thank you guys for allowing us to do that. And again, you'll see your studio when I have it set up. I'll take some pictures and make sure that you have it. You guys are wonderful. All right, I'm gonna read these messages now coming down. I have another video, but let me go ahead and I'll leave the video for tomorrow. Let me talk to you guys with what you have here. Let's see. Daniel Ledo says Sixto is actually saying Western culture should not celebrate and give preference to Western art. Western culture, he's not saying Western culture should not give price to Western art. What he's saying is a reality. Western culture in America, in Europe, is no longer just Western culture. When slaves were brought in and when all these other people were brought in to make America, to make Europe what Europe is and what they all are, the culture changed. It was no longer just Western culture. So therefore we're saying, not because we live here, those that are not original Westerners. I'm a Westerner now, but I'm also of all the other descents that I am. I'm Latin, Caribbean, Western, Black, all the things that comprises. America is no longer just a Western democracy. America is made up of so many different parts that built it. And as such, all these cultures must have equal access to be viewed. Lee Grant says, how does BIPOC play Beethoven any different than a white? No, it's not about playing it different. When my daughter played the violin in school, and my daughter played Bach, my daughter played Beethoven, my daughter played Tchaikovsky, all those different things at her school. And she played it exactly as written for the concert. Now, the example that I gave with Beethoven was two guys loved Beethoven, and they said, you know what, but I want to add a little bit of my kind of beat to Beethoven, and they made a great piece out of it, and they play Beethoven, and they go around the country playing Beethoven with a different kind of tonality. It's great. Beat everything. It's great. It was emergent. It's like what I say. I love Italian food. I love Mexican food. I love every kind of food. I'm not asking these guys to change it. I'm saying all of these are equal in my opinion. Actually, don't forget that Beethoven's music was paranoid for most of his life. There was banned for most of his life. There was nearly a rat when his third symphony. I didn't know that. Carl Cox, a mega rich and a mega corporation, used tax money for the rest of America. The bottom 99.5%, also known as corporate mega rich welfare. Got you. All right, coming down. By the way, Lee Grant, welcome aboard. I haven't seen you in a while, brother. Thank you for coming back. I'll have a lot of my conservatives on today as well. Of course, our progressives are here in force. Michael Rudnin, pardon to step away. Just remember the change in time that we're gonna have. Let's see what else we got here. Egberto, please don't type while he's talking. I didn't realize that the microphone was still picking up while, again, like I said, I don't quite have all these things figured out yet. Egberto Willis, do what you must do. We will deal. When you can, a later show seems better. Not in the middle of the day. Got you, my friend. Egberto, remember to sleep 6 hours. I've been getting 4 hours on average. I need to improve on that. You're here chatting, sharing, learning all the yes, folks. It is that time, and Bridge MCP reminds us. Please visit. Let me go ahead and put that up in there, Bridge. Thank you for reminding us. Please go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. politicsdoneright.com/YouTube if you want to support us, or just go ahead and click. If you're on YouTube right now, click on that join button. Become a part of our PDR posse. But again, you can always go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube to join. If you're not on YouTube, if you're on some other platform, you can also join our Patreon at politicsdoneright.com/Patreon, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Alternatively, you can give us support at our PayPal. That is politicsdoneright.com/PayPal, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. We need a steady flow of income from these different methods. And you notice we try a lot of different methods so that we're not dependent on any one particular, whether Google or Facebook or Instagram, or well, Instagram and Google or Instagram and Facebook are the same. We make sure to have it all because at some point in time, they always try to play games with you. Now you can get all our books at politicsdoneright.com/books, politicsdoneright.com/books. You can go ahead and if you want to put some more to our already completed GoFundMe, but want to support or stay here in Washington, that is politicsdoneright.com/GoFundMe. And I do appreciate what you guys have done. You guys have been more than wonderful. Let's see what else we got here. All right, let me continue answering these emails. Just support us. Oh, one more link I need to give you. I'll give it at the end. I'll give it at the end. All right, let's see what else we have here. Manchin did not like Schumer slamming Republicans. No, he did not. And I think Republicans deserve to be slammed. because again, it was their debt that the debt ceiling was taken care of. So I am so disappointed that that is not what we did. All right. None of us are original Westerners. Eric Hayes, you're very smart. We all had one place of origin somewhere in Africa. Tom C., when will Trump himself be subpoenaed by the January 6th Commission? He should be forced to testify to Congress about his role in the insurrection and attempted coup. If he refuses, lock him up. Remember they used to love that phrase, lock him up. I agree. Tom C. was and him and 3 others like Barron are not complying. Exactly. Rose Williams says, Manchin, you can say projection. Who is more entitled than a person who is using his position to line his pockets and not protect his constituents? Why should he have health care, etc.? We're paying for his entitlements. So true. So true. Let's see what else we've got here. I can confirm the PayPal link works. Be sure to select sending money to a friend. Thank you so kindly, brother. Hi, Coop 333. Bridge MCP, I so wish I could. Bridge, look, let me tell you something, guys. Let me tell you something. I am happy. When I went from my company to do this, I knew what I was doing. I knew that it was going to be slogging. But you know, when you have a passion to do something, and all of you do it. And things work out. When you're doing the right thing, they just tend to work out. There are certain things we didn't expect. My daughter having 2 strokes, that was a difficult one. And that was nowhere. It probably should have been, but it was nowhere in my plans that the problems would come from the younger side. My wife with lupus, I thought, would have been more a problem than even thinking it was my daughter. Eric Hayes says, Egberto, what is your opinion on Turner stuff in Houston? I don't know enough, but if he was redirecting money to somebody that hurt people, he should pay the price. I'm very consistent in what I support, and I think you should know that by now, Eric Hayes. Rose William, there is a big difference between giveaways to those who don't need money and use the money to grow their portfolios and investments in our workers who produce goods and services. Agreed. Eric, isn't Biden lining his pockets via Hunter? If you want to believe the misinformation that you get, it's kind of silly, because why would Biden have to do something so strange as to go to Russia with his son to make all this money when Biden can make as much money as he wants in the United States by just using his name? I mean, the conspiracy theories are so silly. It pretty much says that people are so silly that they would do things that they know would likely get them in trouble. It's easier to be a crook in America than it is a crook working with Russia. The reason Trump worked so well with Russia is he had already abused all his American tricks, and therefore nobody would fall for the things anymore. So next bet, Russia. Bridge MCP, if Congress, Daniel Ledo says there are no original humans, we are all just hairless gorillas. Seriously, how far back do y'all need to go to try to negate the white European? What? What do you mean by negate the white European? I don't know what you mean by negate the white European. What does negate? You can't negate something that is. You can't negate something that is. So what do you mean exactly, Daniel Ledo? I would love to deconstruct that to understand what exactly you mean. Because even when you talk about the white European, there's no such thing as some full pure-bred white European. Because Europeans share so many different distinctions within their own DNA. I find it laughable that somebody wants to talk about distinct European nature. And you know what? It's so funny. And this happened on one of the talk shows I remember one time. There are a lot of white people, especially in America, many of whom somehow have some lineage intermingled with the African slaves. So there are a lot of blue-eyed blondes walking around with a few genes that would be considered more conducive to black folk. It doesn't necessarily show up in hue or pigmentation, but there's a lot. And, people start, with all these researching, with all these, what is that thing that measures your genome, that measures your DNA? I forgot the name. of the group or the organization that tells you where you're from and what pieces of you're from, Africa, Ethiopia, Europe, or whatever. You know, I tell you what, we're all human beings, and we all kind of share different DNAs. That's why I always talk to you guys about. There's a possibility I could give some blue-eyed blonde listening to this show right now my heart if I drop dead, and they couldn't accept one. Yes, DNA analysts, and they couldn't accept one from their own sister. Remember that. We're all humans. We're all humans. The only reason I have to talk race is that because we've been corrupted by this fallacy. Only reason. Anyhow, we got to get out of here. So I want to thank you all for being the best audience anyone can ask for, being some of the best supporters anyone can ask for. 23andMe, thank you, Lee Grant. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I want to thank you. And I'm going to leave the GoFundMe up a little bit more, even though we've reached our goal. Just again for whatever comes in for our incidentals out here, and then I'll take it down, take the link down, this link on the screen down in a few days. But again, Egberto, 4 minutes ago, agreed that there are no original Europeans, negating them, and then plays dumb. Oh Lord, how that was dishonest, and a dishonest characterization. But anyhow, that's okay. My name is before I go, please support us at these other links. This is a catch-all. politicsdoneright.com/support is the catch-all link to support the program. politicsdoneright.com/support. Look, thank you so kindly for being here. You know what I believe in. Love you guys. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.